Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Michael Regan, your host, along with my fabulous co-host, Kathryn Peterson. And like we do each and every Wednesday, we're bringing an episode for the entrepreneurial spirit of our audience. And we hope that this inspires you to slow down a little bit, think a little bit, maybe even do something different because of the topic we're bringing you today. We'll tell you a lot more about the topic because it's actually a post that I'm going to want to unpack and provide some commentary on. But before I ramble about it and set it up any further, I certainly want to welcome Kathryn into the frame today. Welcome back from Belize, Kathryn.
Thank you. It's good to be here and back in my normal routine after living my life plan, is what I'll call it, that vacation.
That is a great phrase. I love that phrase too. And I'm going to do a little life plan living here in the week to come as I get to travel back down to the Valley of the Sun and visit my son and have some vitamin D therapy. So I'm going to take it. You noticed, Kathryn, I sent you a post from an author that I follow, a gentleman named Greg McKeown, who I believe I shared a book with you early on in our coaching routine, a book he authored back in 2014 called Essentialism. So for those of you out there who follow Greg already, you already know the beauty of essentialism. And for those of you that don't, I don't want to make this a book club episode, but please, let's maybe flag that. That's a good one to come back and unpack because it's definitely on my greatest hits collection. But Greg is a great thought leader, and he provides some really great posts on his social media that I enjoy following. And from time to time, they cause me to slow down and think. This one caught my attention recently, and I was so intrigued by it that I think I forwarded the post to you saying, I want to
Mhm.
talk about this one. I think this one has some real tread that we should slow down and unpack. So I hope you'll have some fun with me today on this one, Kathryn. We're gonna take a post from Greg McKeown and we're gonna break it down. We're gonna be like the forensic scientists to see what's the why behind his what. And so let's have some fun with this one today.
Okay, great. Well, do you want me to start reading it?
Oh, that'd be helpful. If you've got the post, that's great. Let's bring
Yeah.
our audience into the frame because they haven't read the post, or maybe they're out there searching right now and doing the okay, let me find out what this guy might have said. We'll give you a clip in the show notes. If you're following us on YouTube, you'll be able to see that in the commentary, and we'll let you know where to find this post if you're interested. But really, it's not about the post; it's about the commentary we're about to have. So yeah, Kathryn, if you've got it, tee it up for us, and I'll
All
catch
right.
a few spots where we can talk.
Perfect. And I might paraphrase a few things. So just to bring
Artistic
that up.
liberty noted.
Okay, great. So Lou Gerstner became the CEO of IBM in 1993. The company was hemorrhaging. The board was panicking. Everything felt broken. His first move was to have a state of the company meeting with his executive team. One of his leaders, trying to impress the new boss, spent days preparing charts, graphics, detailed slides, polished presentation. He wanted to show Gerstner that he was serious, that he was a player. After the second slide came up, he stopped him. He walks over, turns off the projector, and says, "Let's just talk about your business." That moment changed everything about how the executive worked.
Okay, that's a great place to pause because can you picture the scene? I hope our audience can as they're listening to you narrate this. I mean, it's probably a stressful boardroom meeting. There's some guy that thinks the best opportunity he has to impress this board and his boss is to do all of this prep, to get all of this production built into his PowerPoint or whatever version of that he might have been using back then.
Mhm.
This seems like a pretty common scene, I would guess, right? I mean, this doesn't seem like a confusing scenario. People are in a meeting, they're expecting to get some information, and people put together presentations. I mean, you've done it, I've done it. This is not an uncommon scene.
Yeah.
But the CEO was immediately bothered by this approach. And I found that fascinating because one of the things you and I may have talked about on previous podcasts is I'm such a big believer that a PowerPoint in most meetings is more of a distraction than we give it credit for. I often think that we use slides, graphs, pictures, text on the screen, which is the worst, by the way. If you are going to do a visual presentation, try to limit your words on the screen. But any version of that is often for me a mask for I'm not comfortable having this discussion without it. So I need this crutch. I need something to
Mhm.
support what I'm doing because I'm just not comfortable. And as I read this, all I could picture was the CEO thinking, yeah, I know why you're not comfortable because what you're showing us sucks. We all know it sucks. That's why we're here today. So let's quit setting up the problem and let's actually dig into it. Have you ever been in a meeting like this before where you feel like, oh my gosh, someone is hiding behind the slides?
Yes. And I think what the difference is that I noticed here is he actually stopped and said, hold up, versus I've just endured, which is, I think, another good lesson to take from this is he had the relationship and the courage to say, hey, hold up, this is not what we need to be talking about. And I think enough people don't say that in meetings. And that's what I noted about this portion of it.
There you go. We've already got two great takeaways. Mine being don't hide behind the slides. Yours be have the courage to speak up and say this is not the conversation we should be having right now. All right, keep reading. The post is fascinating. Keep
Okay,
going.
great. The CEO had just revealed the truth. Everything except talking about the business was a distraction. The charts weren't adding value. The graphics weren't clarifying anything. The polish wasn't impressing anyone who mattered. They were just noise. Here's what we've been taught: go the extra mile, exceed expectations, add the extras that make you stand out. It sounds right. It feels virtuous. So we do it. We mistake effort for excellence. But here's the part
Okay.
nobody tells you. Hold on, let me finish the sentence. Most tasks don't require the extra mile, they require clarity.
So good, Catherine. Thank you for pulling that all the way through. And look, I think that is worth talking about. That's really the heart of what grabbed my attention in this post. I mean, yes, the setup is worth noting, and I think those are two great takeaways already. But listen to what you just read. We're all taught going the extra mile is where the real value gets added. We're all told spend more time in your prep, spend more time in your presentation, do the work. And it sounds right. I mean, I can't think of a scenario where if you said that I wouldn't be nodding my head and think, I'm in agreement. For those of us on video, you'll recognize that I'm holding up a copy of Unreasonable Hospitality. I mean, this whole book is built on that ideology. Our good friend Roy Michelle, by the way, shared that book with me, and that was a great ad. So have fun. Go back and catch his past episode. That was a good one too. But Catherine, give me some thoughts about the extra mile because I know you are a fantastic service provider. I know that. I see the highlights from both your customers and your partners that love the extra mile that you and your team provide. So this is a little bit of a conflict for me where that's why I was
Mhm.
intrigued by it. Is on one hand, I'm thinking, wait, I kind of want to disagree with them and argue, and yet I want to learn from the point he's making. What's your first reaction to go the extra mile when you read this?
A good example of this would be somebody calls the agent twice a week, even if there's nothing to report. So let's say that you're in a transaction and you're like, hey, I'm going the extra mile. I'm going to call twice a week, but it's a construction and it's a 9-month close. Well, that agent is going to hate you at the end of the transaction. Yes, you've gone the extra mile, but has that been effective for your business? You've just created noise. So that's some of the stuff that I think, okay, what's the most effective thing that you can do? And that's maybe, hey, I'm calling, but I'm not going to follow up for a month because we know this property is not going to be done. So we'll give you some incremental updates and be a little bit different on this transaction. And that's okay. But I think sometimes people kind of get in this thing of like, oh, I have to do all these extras and they don't think through the actual impact to the client or impact to your partner.
So no disagreement. Where do you think that comes from? Why are we so committed to this idea that we have to go the extra mile? Where does that come from? Why do we all believe this?
So, at least for me personally, I feel like it wasn't good enough growing up to just be part of the norm. You had to stand out, get the job, do a little bit extra so that your resume got noticed or that you got picked for this or picked for that. So you had to be extra is the way. And now if you talk to someone younger, extra is kind of like a bad word. Like if you're calling someone extra, that's not good. So I think that it's a little bit generational, but I think we've just been taught, hey, you know, do do five more, do 10 more. Why can't you do one more call every day than you did the day prior? Why can't like what this is this ingrained thing that we have of I have to be better is what I would
Yeah.
say.
I like the commentary you're providing, and so it's immediately making, I hope our audience is feeling this way. It's making me think, okay, so there might be some scenarios where going the extra mile is an appropriate thing based on the activity or the context really of what's going on, where in other situations it could have a actually a diminishing return where now you're the annoying person, or now you're I remember in school we used to use this word Skippy. We'd call somebody Skippy if they were like too much of a teacher's pet. Like, okay, Skippy, like you're just trying too hard.
Yeah.
Or I guess for those of us that might be a little older, that was Eddie Haskell. He was the ultimate brown noser on Leave It to Beaver. But so you're describing it in a way to where I'm visualizing the natural bell curve of, okay, the extra mile really does need to be considered, but to a point of the word you used,
Hmm.
effectiveness. If it's really effective, then it should be considered, if not committed to. But once it loses the effectiveness, holding on to it simply to say, like your scenario of the 9-month construction close, well, congratulations. You just created a reinforcement of, a person that maybe you weren't trying to represent. And now everyone has affirmed it. They've seen, oh, yeah, you're just going to bug the heck out of me. So I'm going to stay away from you. How do we how do we distinguish this, Kathryn? I mean, if his point about the extra mile was to get us to think about effectiveness, and there's probably more in the post. Let's keep reading. Maybe I shouldn't jump ahead with my commentary because I think he's got some great takeaways here that we should reflect on as well.
Yeah. So, well, I think one more thing I want to bring up is clarity, because that's the last sentence. Most tasks don't require the extra mile, they require clarity. And I think that that's part of the key to this whole thing is that one piece. So I didn't want to gloss over that before we moved ahead.
Please don't. Yeah, great.
Yeah. And then the further post talks more about that. So when you're presenting to a client, they want to understand your solution, not be dazzled by your design skills. The presentation is a vehicle for the idea, not the point itself. When you're writing an email, they want the answer, not the backstory, plus your thought process, plus three possible alternatives. Here is the hardest part: the extra mile actually damages your work. The extra stuff obscures the core point. It buries the real message under decoration. The people who have the most impact don't go the extra mile, they go the essential mile. Simplicity is discipline.
Well, you're not going to get an argument from me out of that. Okay, so immediately this thought came to mind as you read that final section is I think this does happen quite often in our communication, and we maybe aren't challenged enough to stop and think about it. You've been in the scenario because I see it in coaching calls all the time. Someone will say to me, "Okay, listen, let me ask you a question." And that's the setup. First of all, you don't need to set up. Let me ask you a question. It's okay to just ask a question, but that's the setup. And then the backstory begins, and there's no question in sight. We have this 3 to 5 minute oratory of information, all of which I think the person that intends to ask thinks is really critical for you
Mm-hmm.
to be able to understand the question they want to ask. But what they don't realize they're communicating in that is, you're now angling me toward the answer you really want to hear. What they're really looking for is validate the thing that I want to hear. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to get the validation, I'm going to set it up just like I see it so that you'll see it like I see it. You'll answer the question the way I would answer it, and I'll feel better about myself. And it becomes very manipulative. And I don't think people consider that when their
Mm-hmm.
intention originally might have been, I'd really like to get your take on this, but it slowly devolves into something that they didn't intend. And sometimes it's because they went the extra mile with all the backstory and all the information. And the truth is, there was no real question. And I'll call them out from time to time of, hey, hold on. Is there a question in here somewhere? Oh yeah, I'm getting to that. Well, that should be a clue. If you're the person that gets challenged and your response is, "Oh, I'm getting to that," that should be a clue right there that you're maybe adding way too much information. And depending on the context of this, you might even be manipulating the person you're asking. Can you think of a scenario like this, Kathryn, or have you been in a situation where someone just can't get the simple question out?
All the time. That's a lot of because I think also people feel like they have to justify why they haven't done something or why they feel a certain way. And so it's adding that justification. And I hear it a lot with credit, like, hey, let me tell you the whole story of what you're gonna see. And it's like, you know what? You are where you are. Let's just look at it and make a plan. Like at this point, I don't want to say the story doesn't matter, but of course I listen to it. But at the same time, the way I describe it to people is, hey, that's the old Michael. The new Michael, that's what we have to focus in on. So sometimes I can kind of close that out a little bit, but I think there's different reasons why people do that, and sometimes it's just getting to that reason a little bit. The other thing I thought of when I was reading this post is there's those people who, let's say, dress perfectly and have these super fancy presentations and do all this stuff, but they really don't have any substance. And that is one of those things in whether it be in mortgage, real estate, whatever industry it is. Sometimes you're like, okay, I can see past this. And I think, yes, you have to dress the part, but there's also a point when you have to say, hey, am I judging this person based on their clothes or what they're saying and the value of what they're providing me? And there's that line there that we have to dig through all the time.
So right out there on Audible or Spotify or Apple, someone is listening thinking, oh, and by the way, they're from Texas. They're thinking, oh yeah, I know that. That's called all hat, no cattle. They definitely
Right.
know what you just said.
Yeah.
Kathryn, in the context of the post, you read something, an email was referenced, and I want to dig in on this one a little bit because this is another area where this happens. We've had a few episodes on email. We've had one recently on taming the inbox, but we've also had them on what's the purpose of email? How do you use it? And this is one I find all the time. And this happens quite a bit in the housing industry because whether it's on the real estate side or the lending side, there's this need to document everything so that later when someone says, well, I didn't know about that, it's like we've got the receipt. Well, you did know about it. It was in the email, and let me take it back
Mhm.
there. I understand the reasoning, so I want to be really careful in the way that I respond to this. If there is a reason, especially for compliance purposes, that you have a disclosure, and my goodness, you've seen disclosure packages, they are just mind frying. It's just too much information. But if there's a reason and you're being told through legal at your company that this is just the way you need to communicate this and don't deviate, please don't take my comment against that if that's your legal advice. But too often, I see people using their email as a communication tool to have this one way dialogue. And now they're waiting for the response to get the one way dialogue back. And so often, this loses the nuance of actual communication. We actually think we've communicated because we traded these long emails, but there's so much information in them.
Mhm.
And we really lost the nuance of things like, well,
Mhm.
just what you did there. You're nodding. You're saying, mm-hmm. There's some acknowledgement of we're tracking with each other. I don't get that in an email. In an email, if anything, my mind might start wandering. If anything, I might be annoyed with this sentence, but now I'm continuing to read, but I can't really process what I'm continuing to read because I'm still stuck on that versus being able to pause and say, wait a minute. Kathryn, help me out. What did you mean by that? I don't understand. Normal communication is a give and take. It's really awkward communication when we're using email to replace a
Mhm.
conversation. And so I hope the audience picks up on this one because I think he pointed that out is that you really lose some clarity, the word you picked, effectiveness, another word you picked. Great calls, by the way. And I think that would be my takeaway of this one is where else are we going the extra mile with all of this information? And I think email is one of them. It's a place where lots of good ideas go to die.
Yeah, that's so true. And then it's like, oh, did you see my email? That was a really good idea, but it's embedded in 17 paragraphs, so you miss it. It's so true. And this is the part of the post I really love. Simplicity is discipline.
Mm.
It takes more skills to cut than to add. It takes more confidence to say, this is enough than to keep polishing.
So, fun fact, I'm going to weave two statements together. If simplicity is discipline, Greg McKeown, and if Jocko Willink, discipline is freedom, just think about
Oh,
that continuum. Like
yeah.
most of us love the idea of freedom. I mean, maybe I'm wading into the dangerous waters of American politics, but
Yeah.
part of the American spirit has always been about freedom. And so we all say we love it. We have different ideas of what it means. That's not our commentary today. But if discipline is freedom, and yet discipline comes from Greg's comment, I think we need to slow that down and unpack that a little bit. That's a powerful statement. Tell me
Yeah.
what you reacted when you heard that.
So I think that people overcomplicate so many things in our life. And a lot of times it doesn't need to be that complicated. And I think that sometimes it's stepping back and saying, hey, am I overcomplicating this very simple project? Or is there a way to do this a lot more simply? And sometimes that's giving it to somebody else to do to see how they do it. And sometimes because it might just be that I know too much about this topic and I'm going to overcomplicate it because I just can't help it. And I think it's sometimes stepping back and saying, okay, if I'm doing things more simple, it's going to take less time for both parties, which then creates that freedom. And I think that that's huge. So that's what I think
That's
of.
really good. I like your takes. And I have this thought, I could be wrong about it, but I have this thought that many people resist simplicity
Hmm.
because they think it might reflect negatively on them as if they don't know enough or they haven't studied it enough or they didn't spend enough time preparing. There's a negative connotation to simplicity.
Hmm.
And yet, most of us that have lived life for a few decades start to realize that no, simplicity is beautiful. It's where
Yeah.
the real joy of life happens. Complexity is the enemy of almost everything that we love. It's
Hmm.
the enemy of relationships. It's the enemy of finances. It's the enemy of productivity. It's certainly the enemy of profitability. I am such a big believer in what you're saying. I think we have to really evaluate from time to time, where do we unnecessarily make our lives complicated? And the only counterbalance to that is to seek simplicity. And if simplicity is discipline and discipline brings freedom, I think most people, if they slow down and really process that thought, they'd be more willing to look for the simple. Look, what is the easier way to say this? What is the easier way to present this? And easy doesn't mean you took it easy. Easy might mean make it easy on everybody else. Make it
Hmm.
easy for them to get to the point. Easy doesn't need to be interpreted as less. It might actually be more. And that's a
Hmm.
total flip. And Greg does a great job with this topic.
Yeah, it's great. And here's some challenges that he presented. Look at what you're currently working on. Ask yourself, what can I remove? The next time you feel the urge to add the extra mile, ask, does this bring clarity or distraction?
Great question. And
Hmm.
I think what he is talking about there is something we do regularly with our KISS filter. We look for those opportunities, not just to keep or improve or start something, but to stop something. And I think that's
Hmm.
always my favorite one, because if I can remove things, it creates space. And space allows me to upgrade how I use that space. Sometimes it's personally, sometimes it's professionally.
Hmm.
But if we are always just stacking on and we're not weeding out, or you've heard me talk about, I think we did an early podcast in season one around pruning. I used the analogy of
Hmm.
pruning, which was a Dr. Henry Cloud analogy that I unpacked for us. These are these are very artful and intentional ways in which to allow you and others to move more efficiently and effectively. And doesn't that sound like what most people really want? I mean, that's what I hear in coaching all the time is help me be more efficient, be more effective. And if they aren't using those words specifically, it's the point behind what they are saying. Kathryn, this is a really, really great topic, and I think a couple of these
Mhm.
things really resonate with us. What's your biggest takeaway as we wrap this one up today? If you were the audience, what would you want them to take away from this post?
I think the big thing is self-reflection to say, hey, what am I doing every day that might just be because I feel like I need to do it or I feel like I'm going the extra mile, but how can I make that more simple, more clear, more streamlined for myself and the people that I interact with? And I think that's the simple question.
Got it. That is simple. Now I feel like I'm counter the whole message here because I think I have three takeaways, and that doesn't seem as simple as yours. But I'll give them to you quickly, and you can decide if I've already overcome. We'll test the theory. I think first is it reminds me to begin with the end in mind. I need to think through things through what is the ultimate objective I'm trying to accomplish here. That allows me to then number two ask what is the most efficient and effective way I can get to that point. And then here's the third, and it's maybe not the point of his post, but if I take those two, it's also read the room, know your audience. When I read
Yeah.
the beginning of this post, this guy wasn't reading the room. He didn't know the audience. And this happens to us all the time in life. We think everybody wants to process information the way we process it. And that's a very selfish view of life. Really, the people we enjoy engaging with often have that emotional intelligence that is just natural. And you find that, oh, they're modifying the way they're communicating because they know who
Hmm.
you are. They're designing the presentation around what you would like and you would need, which I think is why I wanted to add that third, because there is a time in life where going the extra mile is going to be a wonderful choice. So the message today is not don't ever go the extra mile. Um, the message today is exactly what you heard Kathryn say about clarity, is exactly what you heard her say about effectiveness, and ultimately, what we're drawing in this takeaway. And I hope for all of us, we just take the time to slow down enough to think those things through and decide where have I added extra layers of unnecessary? And what would happen if I stream those down? What would happen if I just got my point across more efficiently? And if I did, would I allow more people to engage with me or to get where we're going a little bit faster? And last I checked, Kathryn, I haven't met anyone who wouldn't like that idea. A little more margin in their day would be a gift for most people.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think it comes down to go the essential mile.
I love your takeaway, Kathryn. That's a winner. We're going to put a button on it right there. As Kathryn Peterson said, go the essential mile. Listen, you're joining us on the Building Bigger Lives podcast. Our mission with this podcast is always simple. We want to provide topics and occasionally bring in some guests that bring topics that we think will encourage you, the entrepreneurial spirit, the person who's out there each and every day building a business, living a life, and you want to find some way to live the best version of both. And that's what we try to do when we bring these topics in. We hope you've enjoyed today's commentary on the Greg McKeown post, and we hope that you'll join us for future podcasts as well on your favorite platform. Leave a comment in the section below if you've got some questions or you want to exchange this idea further. We'd love to do that with you, and we'll see you next week on Building Bigger Lives.